Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Voluntary HOA President Claimed He Owns My Property and Put an Illegal Fence Around My Garden. I Shamed the HOA into Disbanding." I live in a neighborhood that has a voluntary HOA, which meant when I moved in I had a choice to formally join or not. Mainly due to some of the horror stories I have read, I decided against joining the HOA and just keep my head down instead. I keep my house and lawn looking fine though, so even though I'm not in the HOA, I am still basically following most of the standard guidelines. I can tell that the HOA president is not happy about me not joining though, because it means one less person giving money to the HOA and basically him. It did not help that the HOA president happened to live right next door to me and made it his mission for a while to try and convince me to sign up for it. One thing that I want to point out now, even though it might not seem important, is that I only have one leg. I do have a fake leg, and when I wear pants and shoes, it is basically impossible for somebody to tell unless they already know. On days that it hurts, I do limp sometimes, and that will all be important for this story a little bit later. Anyway, the HOA president was angry at the fact that I would not join and even tried to tell me things I was doing were against the HOA policy, like having my grass cut a certain time of day or parking my car facing the wrong way in my driveway, because I like to back in. I just keep reminding him that I'm not part of the HOA and don't actually have to follow their rules. What happened next can only be described as the HOA president trying to get even with me for not joining the HOA by trying to take some of my land away from me. On the side of my yard that I share with neighbor, I have a small garden that I try my best to make look nice. I am no expert, but I am learning more as I go along. My neighbor ended up building a fence around it one day and put a sign that said, "No trespassing, property of the HOA." I was angry and went to talk to him to find out what this was about, because it was my property and not the HOA property. He claimed to me that it was actually HOA property, and I probably just never heard about it before since I was not a member and could not go to any of the meetings. I wanted to fight it, and he told me that I would have to take it up with the HOA at one of those meetings that I couldn't go to. I was not signing up for this just so I could go and fight this guy over property that I knew was mine in the first place. He had no right to it, and I was not going to stand around and let him try and bully me. At first I even tried to find out when the HOA was meeting to try and get in and explain to everyone else what the president was doing to me. He made sure that I could not get in, even though I'm pretty sure as long as you live in the neighborhood, you are allowed to go even if you're not a member. I was going to take matters into my own hands and not let some guy with a giant ego take my garden away from me as some sort of sick revenge. I waited until he was gone one day and I burned that wooden fence down until I had access to my garden again. Don't worry though, it was a very controlled flame and I had the hose on hand. I then took the now cool burned pieces of fence and chucked them onto his property to show him what I thought about his HOA abuse of power. He clearly did not like having me show him up with my own revenge. He clearly told some random lie to a bunch of the HOA members, because the next day I had not only him but a small crowd of people standing at my door. He was complaining that I created a mess and put it in his yard, while I told him that he shouldn't have built a fence on my garden and called it HOA property when it really wasn't. He turned and told the crowd that he had no idea what I was talking about, and since he was the president and I was just a nobody, they were quick to side with him. It was a warm day and I had planned to lounge around the house most of the day, so I was just in a shirt and some shorts. So, the fact that I had one fake leg was obvious from the moment I walked out the door. I was also in a little bit of pain, so I had that slight limp I mentioned earlier. I started to clean up the burnt fence pieces and throw them in the trash. As everyone was weirdly silent, it actually did not register at first why it went quiet until I turned around and looked at everybody. They were looking at my leg and then looking at the president shocked. Probably for making me do physical activity despite having one leg, even though I am more than capable. While cleaning up, I brought that sign that talked about the area being HOA property and showed it to the group standing there. That got their attention and suddenly the talking and whispering started again. My neighbor could not get a word in and I decided to milk this thing for all it was worth. I went up to him and told him that I was just so sorry it was taking me so long to clean up all the pieces, my leg just really hurt. I know it's kind of wrong, but I'll admit I exaggerated my limp a little bit, which seemed to make everyone else either feel worse or even get more angry at the HOA president. He ended up telling me he would clean the rest and he was sorry for the misunderstanding about the fence. I told him that I was just trying to move here and do things that everyone else got to do, like plant a garden. That I did not understand why the HOA was an organization that refused to let me do that and tried to take advantage and steal my land. On top of keeping me out of meetings despite being a neighbor, pointing out that just because I had a disability did not mean I should be treated less than anyone else. I knew that none of the reasons for this was because of my leg, since basically nobody knew up until that point. The shame and embarrassment that it caused my neighbor and the other members of the HOA though was enough to cause a major shift. Within a couple of weeks the HOA fizzled out completely with claims that it wasn't needed and the neighborhood was fine as it is. I knew that it was the shame I caused the president that really put the nail in the coffin and stopped the HOA from continuing to do whatever it was they were even doing. I have never been to any kind of HOA meeting, so I really don't know what the point of it is. Things seem to be exactly the same here without it, minus the random fence building and harassment. And yeah, ripe stars, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much in advance, your support is very much appreciated. The next one is titled "Entitled Neighbor's Driveway Drove Me Crazy." I moved from the Toronto area back up north in 2007. In 2008 we bought a home on a 4-acre forested lot from the original owner. Through conversations with the original owner, I remembered him muttering something about how the neighbor to the north had their driveway awful close to the property line. I thought no more about it until later that fall. Our neighbor's house was built slab on grade and the builder must have messed up or not properly installed any drainage for the gravel pad. Every time it rained they had water into their ground floor, an inconvenience to say the least. However, not my problem. That is though until the neighbor rented an excavator and had a deep ditch dug all along our side of his driveway, dumping all of rocks and spoil from the excavation onto our property. We also lost a number of trees, the all-mature black maple sugar bush trees. I was getting concerned. We had problems with a jerk neighbor in Toronto and ended up having to get a survey and put up a fence. I was not going to lose any sleep worrying about it this time, call for a surveyor and get this over with. It turns out the OLS firm I called were the ones who surveyed the development when it was built 10 years earlier. They had no trouble mapping out how and where the neighbor's driveway for over 100 feet now arced up the 12 feet onto our property, never mind the rocks and dirt in the bush beyond that. I sent a registered letter with a copy of the survey and a polite letter to our neighbor. With registered, you have to sign to pick it up. They received it but did not respond. I waited a month and then sent another registered letter. That one was not picked up and was returned to me. Yeah, that should work. If I don't receive the letter, everything will just go away. In way of explanation, the neighbor was a successful local businessman, and in smaller communities some of them tend to think that they are a bit special and can make their own rules. I learned from the jerk neighbor in Toronto that there is not much point trying to discuss things personally. We have a system, let's use it. The next letter that's sent to them is from our real estate law firm. They know the right language to use and how to get someone's attention. Surprise, surprise, that not only gets picked up, but we receive a letter from their lawyer. They freely admit that they are at fault and will make everything right. Except they don't. They don't do anything for the next 3 years. Absolutely nothing. I started receiving expert advice from some of my friends. OP, you should fix it at your own cost and then sue them for that amount. Well, what if they claim they could have fixed it a lot cheaper, or I did a bunch of things that were not needed? OP, you should charge them for all the trees they cut down and make them replace them. Well, yeah, but we do live in the forest and trees are not really hard to find. In fact, we cut down trees that get too big too close to the house. It's not like we're in the big city. I decide to do nothing. After the angst and sleepless nights with the jerks in Toronto, I decide to just wait it out. After all, they have admitted fault through their lawyer. It's not like they can wiggle out of that one or change their minds. I learn that the neighbor's wife hates living in the forest and would much rather have a schmancy house in town. And with the water problem that has never been resolved, it just is not as much fun as they had thought it would be. 4 years later, what I was waiting for. A realtor's for sale sign in front of their house. I stop and take a picture of the sign so that I have the phone number of the listing agent. I call them as soon as I get to work. Hi, this is OP. I see you're listing a property at XYZ. You may not be aware of this, but your client is trespassing on my property. Of course, the neighbor cannot pretend this is not true, and now we have to clean up the mess to our satisfaction before the property can be sold. Oh my, the 5-yard dump trucks ran for close to 3 weeks. They hauled load after load after load of topsoil. It had to be dumped, spread out and compacted. The gravel driveway had to be dug up and pulled back to the property line, and all that filled in as well. At the end, it was all seeded with the understanding that it will eventually go back to being forest. OP, is it okay now? Not quite. It looks like there's still a lot of work to do. All the weeping tile, rocks and piles of dirt were removed as well. Not a job easily done and very time consuming. Don't get mad, wait and then get even. And the next one is titled Neighbor Plumbing Issues. I own a condo. My neighbor has a unit above mine. He approached me with a bathroom addition plan to his unit. They are an elderly couple. His wife has a condition worsening with age. He wants to convert a bedroom to a second master bedroom with a handicapped accessible ensuite for the disabled wife. This bathroom needs supply and drainage piping to run through my unit below. The plumbing requires opening my ceilings, floors and walls of my living room. The renovation, mess and repair would be disruption to my tenants who rent my place now. The noises of a bath draining or toilet flushing would be heard in the living room. I would want reimbursement to my tenant for loss of use during the work, followed by cleaning everything to my tenant's satisfaction. I would want contractors of my own choosing to do the work. I would have to get involved and petition the HOA to allow the work in my unit. The plumbing supplies would run in an exterior wall of my condo if they froze or leaked. We have very cold winters. The first damage would be into my unit below. If ever a clog or repairs, another excuse to enter my condo. Who would thereafter own those, aka his, pipes in my condo walls? If he sold his place, would the next tenant respect this arrangement or would we need an easement? It was a can of worms. I studied the man while he spoke. There was desperation in his words, eyes and expressions. Refusing this unappealing project would be an uphill battle. I chose to just answer with a simple, "No, sorry to disappoint, but I cannot help you." He demanded to know why not and guessed my reasons. I'd just repeat myself exactly, refusing his bait as he argued further and grew agitated. He would whittle me down and hold me to a long debate until I said yes. I sidestepped all that, not giving him my reasons to challenge. I did not wish to waste the next 30+ minutes explaining all of my concerns, hearing they were unimportant to him, or his suggestions to mitigate them. He was exasperated with my same answers and after 5 minutes called me a broken record before stumping off. He is gossiping about me to our neighbors. Says that I'm against disabled people. How could I refuse to help his poor wife? Because of me, she has a bad quality of home life. Other busybody neighbors stop me to discuss our problem and speak on his behalf, but I cut them off saying the matter does not concern them. The next day, somebody stopped to tell me this was a bad look for me. Fed up, I told him, "Good thing I'm not running a popularity contest. Now leave me alone." He is using a disability to garner support when I have a right to refuse participation. Maybe he should renovate his existing master bathroom to suit his wife, or maybe this condo is unsuitable for them and should move. This is not a private house permitting such customization. I had a touch of guilt when I saw him bring his wife home and she was struggling to use a walker. And yeah, Ripe Stars, what would you say about OP in this story? Do you think that he is the a-hole or not? Let us know in the comments. Either way, a few commenters said, not the a-hole, he is on the 2nd floor and his wife uses a walker. Already his condo is dangerous for her in a way that he cannot fix with renovations. He has no right to force that much alteration to your condo just because he thinks it will benefit his wife. Honestly, I think they need to move into a disability-friendly home somewhere rather than try to fix something with several obstacles to his wife's safety. Another user in the comments also agreed, not the a-hole, what he is asking directly affects the value of your property, and I have a feeling your homeowner's insurance would have a thing or two to say also. It's very possible that what he is asking would not even be allowed by the HOA/board since it incurs into your unit. You can have sympathy for him, but you are in no way required to diminish your property to benefit him. Another user said, not the a-hole, it sounds like they need to move. This is not a reasonable accommodation that they want you to make. This is major work that you cannot expect your tenants to pay you rent to put up with. So even if they paid the building cost, it would cost you a significant amount of money. This would require someone being in the property to be with the builders. Who is taking time off work to do that? You? Your tenants? It would require the tenants to pack up their stuff and basically move out of the living room, if not the whole flat, as the minute you start taking down walls and ceilings, the dust is going to be horrendous. If the harassment continues, contact the HOA. And the next revenge story is titled, Killing Them with Kindness. I drove by a friend's house in my neighborhood and noticed a lot of her dead leaves were blowing onto the yard next door. Now, my friend is a nice woman, but she doesn't take care of her yard and it really looks bad, especially in the fall. Making it look worse is the fact that her neighbor really keeps up her yard and it looks spotless all the time. Well, I had a few minutes to spare, so I got out of my truck and started to blow the leaves into a pile so I could remove them. I'm a landscaper and well, it is what I do. No sooner than I get started when the neighbor comes out screaming at me. You'd better not get any leaves on my property. I pay good money to have my yard cleaned and I don't appreciate you blowing leaves on it. Really rude, over the top and abusive, this neighbor. I tried to explain that I was a neighbor just trying to do a good deed, not only for my friend but for her as well, but she wasn't having any of it, talked right over me. I don't care who you are or why you are here, I'd better not find one leaf on my yard when you are done, or else. Well, I finish up the yard and meekly get back in my truck and drive away, thinking no good deed goes unpunished. I mean, my friend never even thanked me because she probably didn't even notice. A little over a year later, the neighbor's yard starts to look really bad, and upon asking my friend, I learned that the husband has gotten cancer, the insurance has run out, and they are having a rough time financially. Obviously, the first thing you cut back on is paying for lawn maintenance, and it showed. I made the decision, much to the chagrin of my wife and bewilderment of my friend, that I would secretly clean up their front yard whenever I could because, well, it is the right thing to do regardless of how I had been treated. Well, she came out and caught me one day. Her car was in the shop and I thought no one was at home. I heard her voice behind me saying, I want to meet the person that has been so sweet as to take care of my yard these past few months and say thank you from the bottom of my heart. When I turned around and she saw my face, I swear she turned first white as a ghost and then almost as quickly red as an apple. No problem, neighbor, I said with a smile. Just glad I could help you. I wished her a good day and went on my way. I found out later from my friend that she remembered me and how badly she treated me and was damn mortified when she found out that it was me who had been maintaining her yard. Her husband has since passed away and I continue to this day helping her out when I see the yard looking bad. Sure, I would like to think that I do it out of the goodness in my heart, but there is a part of me that takes some satisfaction knowing that I am slowly, as my mother used to say, killing her with kindness. Sometimes the best revenge is kindness in the face of rudeness, for it acts as a mirror reflecting an image to the recipient that they are often mortified to see. Oh, who is playing today? Is that Disney? Oh, I think that's her favorite toy. She does not even want to let it go. Disney. Yeah, I'm still looking for some kind of like cat robot or something, like something that just drives around the room with like a bunch of feathers in it, so that it can keep Disney company when we are not here or something for a few hours. Right, Disney, what is here? Yeah, Disney is strong, like it can barely remove the toy. Disney is very strong. Oh. Oi. Disney. Actually, this thing recently, it fell down, I guess, and she jumped at it or something. It was like super strange. Like there was like a loud sound, and like only later I found out what happened. Oi. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And of course, Disney, you look to the YouTube audience. Disney don't want to look at the YouTube audience. No, want to look, right? Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.